How many of these crashed crafts do you estimate there are that human beings have recovered?
More than 10.
More than 10?
More than 10.
How many of them are in possession of people in the United States?
I meant more than 10 in possession of the United States.
What about worldwide?
Worldwide?
Do we have any data on that?
We have data, but it's classified. There's no way to really talk about it.
But so there's more, though. You could safely say it's not just the ones in the United States.
Not just the ones in the United States, and these...
are they equally distributed?
I don't know for sure in terms of data. I mean, we have our best data, of course, on our own retrievals.
But more than 10 retrieved in the United States.
More than 10.
Okay, guys. So, confirmed, the US of A has more than 10 UFO craft, NHI craft, however you want to describe it, in their possession. And we're going to be talking about it today, guys. Hal Puthoff was on Joe Rogan, guys, the biggest platform on earth that I know of. And he claims disclosure is coming really soon, and I know we've heard this quite a lot in the past, and our latest timeline is 2027, and then we got 2026. There's just so much things happening. Any of them could just lead to disclosure before the others, so we're just trying to figure out which one it's going to be, whether it's Chris Bledsoe or whether it's Grio, and whichever direction this takes to disclosure, whether it's a foreign adversary, right? We're going to be finding out, and we're going to be discovering this together. So this podcast that was recently released is really good. I went through the hours, so definitely leave a like, subscribe, notifications on for all the effort to find the best parts to showcase for you guys here, okay? And share this video. It helps a ton if you have a group, family group, anything like that. And leave a like. It's good for the algorithm. And without further ado, we're going to be watching, and stay till the end because the best parts are there as always. And not to brag, but recently on LinkedIn, I'm actually connected to Hal Puthoff, guys. So I can see what he posts in his professional work. So I can be keeping updates like that as well. So let's just dive right in, okay? So in yesterday's video, we spoke about how that whistleblower came out supporting a claim. New NASA whistleblower, 30 years experience, came out claiming that there is a anti-gravitic NHI craft in a hangar. And we talked about how similarly it sounds to Bob Lazar, right? And I'm gonna have to say it, guys. There's some more shit coming out that seems to give some credibility to Bob Lazar. So Hal Puthoff had something to say about Bob Lazar as well, and I want Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, I want their takes on this ASAP, guys. Post this on Twitter. We got to figure out some more about this, right?
What is your take on Bob Lazar?
Well, we looked into the Bob Lazar story, and but only from a certain relatively superficial level. Looked at, we found out what his clearance levels supposedly were and so on, which came back saying it was not high enough to be doing what he says he was doing. On the other hand, it may just simply be, it was better than that, but we didn't have the access to see that. So when I hear his physics descriptions, it's a puzzle. It seems not exactly as I would anticipate might be the technology behind the craft, but I can't absolutely write them off. So it's an enigma, and I don't have any hard data to prove one way or the other.
I think using the word enigma is so powerful and accurate when describing Bob Lazar, right? There is not many cases like him, so we've just got to appreciate the fact that he did what he did, and he's still here. We have him. He did what he did for the better of humans, supposedly, and he's trying to get stuff out. But regardless, whatever leads to more transparency is good, right? So we got to stop putting national defense excuses on everything. We've got to study Bob Lazar good. We've got to, I think he has a movie coming out, and he made a recreation of S4 and the hangars that he was in, everything that he saw. So we're going to be checking that out real soon. Subscribe notifications on. A lot of you watching are not subscribed. We need to get those numbers up, guys.
So it's I know you've talked to him. And,
Yeah. It's a fascinating puzzle.
It is a fascinating puzzle.
Because that would be the place, S4 would be the place where they would do that kind of work. I mean, if you wanted to do something like that in complete privacy and secrecy, you'd do it in the middle of the Nevada desert, very protected.
That's true. Right.
Outside of Area 51.
So even when people that have high clearances go and say, well, tell me about this. What?
Wasn't there a mention that the most recent person that Jesse Michaels had on American Alchemy that just died, right? What didn't he play a part in creating S4 Area 51 originally? And why has Jesse Michaels not had Hal Puthoff on, or has he? Or, Bob Lazar. Like, imagine Jesse Michaels interviewing Bob Lazar. There's so many epic interviews that could be coming out, and I just hope Jesse Michaels is working on that. And I think we should ask him on Twitter, start a hashtag, some shit. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think Jesse Michaels will be moving on to the very important whistleblowers / figures who are coming out with all this? I want to see Jesse Michaels talk to the man that whistleblew on Weaponized. That would be really interesting as well. We've got to get the right people in contact with the right interviewers, right?
What's behind this? Who knows? If it's a special access program, an SAP, it might be, say, no, we're going to tell you that, he didn't do anything of significance here. In fact, he might have done something of significance. There's just no way of telling from the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the actual generator, the thing that powers the craft that Lazar talked about, what was your take on that? This idea that it was element 115, that when it encounters high radiation, it has some sort of an anti-gravitational effect, some warp effect.
Well, there are two aspects. One is, what is the material or mechanisms that generate the effects? And then the other is, are the effects being described reasonable descriptions of the kind of effects you think are associated with such craft? On the element 115, as you know, in the general scientific community, we've seen element 115, but it's very short-lived. So it's hard to evaluate that, and at this point, there's no evidence that's it.
So it was we should explain to people, it was theoretical at one point until they detected it using, was it a Large Hadron Collider or another particle collider?
Right now I think it was a particle collider in Soviet Union or in Russia.
And it's very short-lasting.
Yeah.
But the idea is that what Lazar was in possession of, or what the craft was powered by, was some sort of a stable version of element 115.
That's what he says. So, in general, it was known that, and predicted, that there was an island of stability, as we call it, on some of these higher elements in the periodic table that are beyond uranium and so on. But really no data predicted as to what their lifetimes would be. And so element 115 is in that bunch, and when he first discussed it, it hadn't been seen yet.
Or this is way back in 1989.
Way back, that's right. But eventually that element was detected, although the version of it that was detected had a very short lifetime. But of course, there may be some other isotope of that element that could have a long lifetime. Who knows? So it's just hard to evaluate. So it sits in my gray box, as I say.
And the thing with Bob Lazar is when you look into it, there's so many things that it's a massive coincidence that he guessed all those technologies that were so much far before its time. Like the hand scanner, he even showed the public his old key card that he used to go in with. And there's just so much stuff coming out. Bob Lazar is really an enigma. That's the truest sense of the word. Hope to see more of him, and Hal Puthoff giving some credibility to him. It seems like the truth is leaning in that direction. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you think.
And when you think about, these days, well, suppose we have some kind of disclosure, what are these companies going to do? They've been hiding things, or parts of the government have been hiding things.
Misappropriating funds, lying to Congress.
Lying to Congress. So you can see why it's such a big problem at this point.
Well, that was that disclosure documentary that I saw you in as well, that appeared at South by Southwest, which was excellent. What is it called?
It's called The Age of Disclosure.
Amazing documentary.
It's an amazing documentary.
Really hope that gets released somewhere big, like Netflix or something like that, so people can see it.
I think Dan Farah, who's the director and producer of that, by the way, a very well-known producer. You know, he collaborated with Steven Spielberg on Ready Player One, which is the big hit, and so on. And the approach he used, which is really very clever, he contacted people like me, people like Lou Elizondo, on and on and on, and said, many of you don't want to come out really and reveal too much, podcast by podcast by podcast. So tell you what, my goal, he says, I'm going to approach 38 of the maximum insiders. And by maximum insiders, I mean it includes people like, Senator Rubio, of course now Secretary of State, Clapper, who's, and I'm going to get all of you to collaborate on saying what your involvement was, to the degree you can, and, not say something and end up going to jail. And then we'll put out maximum disclosure evidence all at one time in this film. And it'll include people coming forward like Jay Stratton, who is head of the UAP task force. He's been involved in this field for 16 years. By the way, he has a book about to come out also, which will really be a disclosure. So anyways, we'll put this together. We won't talk about it along the way. And so 38 of us ended up being interviewed for the film, telling whatever role we felt we could tell. So, in fact, when that film comes out, that's going to be disclosure on steroids, I think. That's going to be the maximum. And, well, you saw the film, so you know it's pretty revealing.
It's very well done.
Yeah.